In this tutorial, we will have a look at how Kodu uses methods and event handlers to allow objects in the game to interact with their environment. We will also return to having a look at the attributes or properties of some of the objects. In Kodu, every object has a set of its own actions called methods. For example, when we load up a Kodu, it has certain built-in abilities such as the idle method. When Kodu isn't doing anything else, he will bounce around and roll his eyes as part of the idle loop. Occasionally, he will also be a bit more energetic, but all the while he will sit in the same place. This is his idle method. In addition to these, you can create your own event handlers. An event handler is where you give Kodu or other objects an ability to react to things happening in the game with additional actions. To do this, we right-click on the object and choose to program. So here we can see that with the object menu chosen, we click on program, and we can then apply a when trigger to a do action. When this happens, do these things. So always, Kodu will move by wandering around. When the spacebar is pressed, Kodu will shoot a blip of a random color. Let's see how this works in the real game. So starting with a new world, we will choose the object tool, click on the terrain and put on a Kodu. Then I will right click on Kodu, choose to program, and from the available when, and notice that there is a more option. So I don't want to do any of these things here. I want to look at more and say always. And what I want to do always is to move. And I don't want to move forward, I want to wander. This will be a random path that is taken. If I press escape and then play, we will see that Kodu then starts to wander around the area in a fairly purposeless, random way. And escape will take me back to the menu. Again, I'm going to choose the object tool, point at Kodu and right click to bring up program. And when I use the keyboard, and notice I'm using plus to give more information, I want to have a look at miscellaneous keys and the space bar. And when I press space on the keyboard, I would like not any of the things we can see here. I would like to go to more and shoot. And what I would like to shoot, there are various options, but I'm going to shoot a blip. And that blip, if I look at colors, can then be a random color. Press escape again to automatically play. And when I press space, a blip goes, or I can fire several blips. This takes us back to looking at the attributes or properties of an object. Remember that we can change the properties of an object. For example, I can change the color of Kodu by pointing at him and then using the arrow keys to choose a different color. I'd like to go for a black Kodu. I can change things like the size. There is a half-sized Kodu. Escape removes me from that menu. But I can also have a look at settings, and this gives many more properties or attributes of the object. For example, by moving down the list, I can look at the blip reload time, which at the moment is very fast. If I make it 1 second between blips and give the blip range to be much shorter, maybe 10, and the blip speed to be as low as 5, and the number of blips at once to be 5. When I now try my Kodu, it's a much more controlled firing. There is 1 second between each launching of a blip. So we can see that change settings gives us access to many properties that adjust how Kodu works. For example, his forward speed is 1 at the moment. If I make that much faster, but his turning speed much slower, then we see that he is finding it difficult to turn and ends up bouncing off an invisible glass wall around the area. And he's still only able to fire 1 bullet at a time. So I'm going to go back to change settings and go back to a blip reload time of 1/10 of a second and a blip range which is much longer. Now I can fire a lot of blips, but they have a very long range before I can fire again. They're very far from the world before I can reload and start to shoot again. So, experiment with some of the properties available. Perhaps change from shooting missiles, or from changing blips to shooting missiles, and change, instead of wandering around, to use arrow keys or WASD keys so that you can control where Kodu goes. To control Kodu, I'm going to program, and instead of always, I can replace that with keyboard, WASD keys, and then instead of move wander, I would move forward. Now I am controlling where Kodu goes. When you have made a Kodu game it is important that you remember how to save things. To save your work, you should go to Home, which is the house shape. You can then choose Save My World. And you should give it a sensible name. For example, Simple Kodu Movement and Firing. A description. So I'm saying adjustments to blip firing rate, which was the main purpose of this tutorial. And make sure that your name is here as the creator, because this will be part of your printout when you get evidence of what you have done. Click on Save, and then we should be able to return there. If I go to New World, it's gone, but I can choose Load World, and we should be able to see Simple Kodu Move as part of the list of available worlds. And here is my world back ready for use.